The story of Kat Hernandez and her journey into the world of camming is one of the most complex and talked about chapters in modern online culture. It's a story that forces us to ask difficult questions about power, trauma, and survival in the digital age. To many, her decision to become a webcam model was a shocking turn, a steep fall from grace after the very public trauma she endured. But to others, it was a radical act of reclaiming control. This is the heart of the debate. Was Kat Hernandez's camming arc a powerful reclamation of her own gaze? Or was it a painful repetition of her past trauma, played out on a screen for anyone to watch? First, we have to understand where Kat was coming from. Her life was turned inside out by a profound violation of trust and privacy. She was not a stranger to being looked at, but that look was stolen, twisted, and used against her. The gaze upon her was hostile, invasive, and entirely out of her control. In this context, the world of camming presents a seemingly opposite proposition. It is a space where the gaze is, in theory, a transaction. The model sets the rules, the prices, and the boundaries. The client pays for the privilege of looking, and that look is confined to a digital window that can be closed at any second. For someone whose image was violently taken, the idea of selling it, on her own terms, can feel like the ultimate power move. This is the argument for reclamation. Supporters of Kat saw her camming as a defiant act of alchemy. She was taking the very thing that hurt her, the commodification of her body and image, and attempting to transform it into a source of power, income, and agency. She was saying, "You wanted to look? Fine. Now you will look when I say so, how I say so, and you will pay for it." In this view, the camera lens stops being a weapon aimed at her and becomes a tool in her hands. She controls the lighting, the angles, the narrative. The trauma that sought to make her a passive victim is challenged by her active participation. It becomes a way of rewriting the story, moving from "this was done to me" to "this is what I choose to do." Furthermore, the camming community itself can offer a form of validation and community that is hard to find elsewhere. For Kat, who likely felt isolated and mistrustful after her trauma, the platform could provide a direct line to an audience that explicitly desired and appreciated her presentation of herself. The tips, the compliments, the regular clients, all of this can build a distorted but potent sense of worth and control. In a life where her sense of self was shattered, here was a system that gave immediate, quantifiable feedback. It can feel like building a new identity, brick by digital brick, from the rubble of the old one. However, the opposing argument is just as strong, and perhaps more heartbreaking. This view suggests that Kat's foray into camming was not a break from her trauma, but a reenactment of it. Trauma has a cruel way of tricking the mind into repeating painful patterns, a psychological compulsion to return to the scene of the crime, hoping for a different outcome. Here, the question becomes, is she truly in control, or is the trauma itself now in the driver's seat? Disguised as a career choice. The architecture of the camming industry, no matter how many rules a model sets, is fundamentally built on the male gaze and the gratification of the client. The power dynamic, while contractual, is still inherently one of performance for a paying spectator. For someone recovering from a violation rooted in being objectified, voluntarily placing oneself in a space of constant, intense objectification can be dangerously close to the original wound. The sense of control can be an illusion, a flimsy shield against the same old feelings of exposure and vulnerability. The safe space of her studio can feel haunted by the ghosts of her past. Is she reclaiming her body? Or is she simply proving to herself over and over that her primary value is in being looked at? There is also the inescapable reality of the internet itself. The digital footprint is permanent and hostile. By stepping into camming, Kat opened herself up to a new world of potential harm, stalkers, screenshotting, harassment, and the constant threat of her new content being leaked or shared without her consent. For a person whose trauma was deeply tied to a loss of privacy, this is a monumental risk. It can create a state of hypervigilance where every notification could be a threat, mirroring the anxiety of her original trauma. The pursuit of control can paradoxically lead to a life feeling more out of control than ever, constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop in a new, digital form. The truth about Kat Hernandez's camming arc likely lies not in choosing one side or the other, but in sitting with the uncomfortable, messy reality that it is probably both things at once. The human psyche is not a simple switch. It is a battlefield of contradictions. It is entirely possible that her decision was a genuine, conscious attempt to reclaim power, a brave and gritty effort to turn poison into medicine. And it is equally possible that, beneath that conscious effort, the old wounds were being poked and prodded, ensuring that the healing could never truly begin. This duality is the tragedy and the complexity of her story. She may have logged onto her cam sessions feeling powerful and in charge, only to log off hours later feeling empty and re-traumatized. A compliment from a client could feel genuinely affirming one day and hollow and degrading the next. The line between reclamation and repetition is not a wall, it is a shifting, muddy border that she had to walk every single day. In the end, Kat's story is a stark, modern parable. It shows us that in a world where our image can be both a currency and a weapon, the path to healing is terrifyingly unclear. The tools available for empowerment are often the same tools that were used for oppression. Her camming arc forces us to move beyond simple judgments. We cannot just call it empowerment or exploitation. We have to see it for what it is, a desperate, complicated, and deeply human attempt to survive and find agency in the aftermath of a storm. It asks us whether we can ever truly separate the performance of healing from the real thing, and whether, in trying to own our narratives, we sometimes end up writing new chapters in a story we never wanted to be in. The camera was her stage, her prison, her office, and her therapy couch all at once. And in that blinding, complicated light, Kat Hernandez was simply trying to find her way back to herself, one stream at a time.